it's Robbie and it's spring, and I'm actually been working in the garden. And I decided to tackle this great big thing that Gary had picked up in the trash a while back. And I grew all kinds of different vegetables in it last year. So I kind of gutted it. And I thought, you know, I've been moving things and setting up, and I see earthworms and everything. And I thought, no, I got to get the camera out and share with you some of the things that I've been finding as I'm working in the garden. So what I did was, I've got these flower pots. Here's one here. This has got nice big holes in it. And I'm putting in here collared leaves and different leaves from kale and branches that have been, you know, from squash or old plants. I've been filling these up, and then I've been putting in native soil that looks really good. I haven't even put any potting soil in here yet of any type, just native soil from around here. I've got 2 of them done, and I'm going to get squash or tomatoes in here right now. This is all going to be layered. The bottom, let me move over here slowly so I don't make anybody dizzy, is very similar to this. This is the red bin that I compost in place. And this was where I, you know, was putting all my kitchen scraps, eggshells, you can see that, coffee grinds, everything from the kitchen, anything found in the refrigerator that I don't know what it is, went in there until I figured out where exactly I wanted to put it. So I moved the squash. There's a squash over there. I put a cage over it so the rabbits won't eat it. They usually touch them when they're young and don't bother them too much when they're older, the plants. So I put a cage over it and I moved the squash out of here. It's a volunteer. I'm pretty sure it's a hybrid because it's from something I had kept over winter, and the seed ended up in there and grew. And of course there's a lot of tomatoes. I will probably keep some of them, but I don't know what type they are. But I moved that there, and I'm starting to move this out, and I add some of this now, let me back up slowly, to these pots. So as I'm filling them, and I'll show you step by step how I filled them up with things from the garden, I put in some of the compost. I'm calling it compost, but it's just food matter and leaves and stuff, and you can see twigs that are still breaking down. And it doesn't matter if it's broke down or not completely. Absolutely doesn't matter. Look at this. Remember, all this is growing in paper. Look at this, the tomato plant. The seeds are all growing in whatever was put in here. This hasn't broke down. There's no soil in this at all. There's even dog hair. Gary combs the dogs and throws the hair in there because that breaks down wonderful too. So don't worry if it hasn't broke down. Just don't put it next to the plant that you're planting if you've got a little seedling. I mean, you can, but I move it over and then put a little bit of native soil around it. This way the earthworms will come in. Remember this, I have not put any soil in here. We're going to look at this together because I started seeing things this morning that I was surprised. So I found earthworms in here. Look at this. I could not believe it. And look how it looks like a wonderful rich soil. This is all food matter. This is leaves and food matter breaking down that the earthworms found their way in. Now there are holes on the bottom of this, so they possibly came up to the bottom. But our earthworms also travel. They'll go up pots. If they sense food, they'll just crawl up. You'll see them at night sometimes going up the side. They climb. These guys move. They're on the move. They sense food is around. So they are, look what they did. This is in the yard. Now, of course, we're not in the snow, and they're not going to do this if you were in the snow. But once spring comes, they're going to find it. You know, they say build it and they will come. Well, build your soil like this. It's not soil yet. All your food scraps, and they will come. And they have come. Now, I don't want to leave them exposed until I move them, but I've been grabbing handfuls of that. I want to make sure there's no babies on me. And I've been putting them in these pots. Now, what I do in here is, last year I had a lot of food scraps in there. Same thing, compost in place, leaves from the garden, and see, it's kind of dropped down a little bit, and that's okay. And what I'm doing now is building up my pots. Now, you're probably saying, some of you are probably saying, why are you putting pots and not just planting in it? By setting up my pots, and this is not set up yet. A lot of stuff I don't want to move because when I lifted a pot, it was full of earthworms, and I don't want to disturb them until I am ready to set this up. So I kind of picked up the pot, saw earthworms, put it back. But the reason I'm doing the pots is I can plant now a tomato plant in here, a squash in here, something else, whatever I want in each individual pot. Sometimes it's a little difficult to plant tomato plants and squash together because squash are very, very heavy feeders, and they'll pull a lot of the nutrients, sometimes more than the tomatoes. So that is a little difficult. And so, but, you know, so when one may compete and the squash will usually wins. But I'll tell you, a lot of times, I'll show you in another video, the tomatoes will just wait. And when the squash dies, the tomato plants just take off. So there's different ways of doing it. But doing it this way, each plant has their individual territory. Let's call it a territory. So the earthworms will be on the bottom here, feeding on all the food matter that's still in here, because I have been adding in new food matter, and I've kind of covered the top with wood chips here. And you can use potting soil, leaves, dried leaves, whatever you want. The earthworms are going to go up and down the pots. But that tomato plant is independent. It will send its roots out into the container on the bottom. The roots will long leave, but everybody seems to grow together really, really well. And I can continue to compost here, throw my kitchen scraps right in here. In either, see, look at that. I think there's, I could make a little hole, throw some more kitchen scraps in there, let's say. Hey, you could do this. Let's say that's a kitchen scrap, it's not. Throw some and cover it. You could do that where it's not disturbing the plants and you're still composting in place in a container. This is a large container, but let me tell you, I do this to the small containers too. So this is why I absolutely love using the layer method like this. And then it's easy to clean too. But I'm going to go back to work and show you exactly how I did this. It's been working really good. I think it's worth some people doing a try, especially if you're having a problem. If whatever method you are using, and if it works, stick with it. Because everybody's got their own method. Everybody has their own way of doing things. And everybody, you know, just does it the way they want. And that's the way it should be. This works for me. And it's because their soil is so bad and it's clay. And then of course we've got, look what I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with a small pepper tree here right now because Gary trimmed it down. And then of course the pine trees and, well, not too much the palm. I don't think the palm bothers me, but the pine trees do, and they send their roots into things. So like this one, the holes are a little bit up because otherwise this would be just full of pine roots from the pine tree. So here in this garden, this is the way I have to do it if I want to be, I don't want to use the word successful, but if I want to have less work fighting with a pine tree or a pepper tree. So I just compost, have the holes maybe an inch above the ground. This way the roots can't get in there. And if they do manage, you know, sometimes things push up against the holes and they'll manage to get in there. See the holes? If the roots do get in there, then yes, I have to break the roots and deal with that. But, you know, it depends on your situation. We have a lot of trees, so I have to deal with that. And Gary's got his own issues with roots, so he has to deal with it. But I like it also because it's like patio gardening. You have control of your soil and you know how rich it is. And I'm telling you, this is really good. So that's how I do it. This is not set up yet. Like I said, I don't want to move the pots too much because when I move them, I don't know if there's anything here. There's been earthworms and stuff. Oh, let me see. No, I don't see any earthworms in here right now. Earlier I did. And so what happens is when you lift a pot, they duck. They know you've lifted it, you've disturbed them, and they just go straight down into the ground. And they don't come back for a couple hours. They go deep down because they've been disturbed. They were eating and somebody bothered them and they leave. But I'm going to get this set up and show you how this is going to be set up. And then maybe we'll come back in a few months and see what it looks like. So let me get this going and I will show you how I set up these containers. I saw a gardener planting somewhere in a park area and I stopped and I asked him if I could have these because these are really nice. These are, pots that you get small trees in if you go to the nursery. And he said that he was supposed to take them back, but he said, I'll give you 3. So he gave me 3. They're bigger than the black ones I use, the floral ones. But that's going to work good. So I'll get those 3 set up, and then the floral ones are going to be in there too, and I'm going to have different things going. And again, you compost in the same tub. You continue to throw kitchen scraps, leaves from the garden, and you will be feeding your plants free food from your garden all year, and the plants love it. In other words, you're doing it the way Mother Nature does it. So back to work I go, and I'm taking you all with me. See, as I walk around the yard, I'm taking soil like this that I maybe collected, maybe I moved it, maybe a gopher pushed it up. And when you move these tubs, because they've been sitting, and of course I try to remember to water all containers, there's life under there. Even though it looks like it's all dry around it, look at the wood chips. Look at the tub on top. I mean, look at the soil on top. It looks like it's dry, but there's life under this plastic flower pot. And I want that life. If I'm going to use that soil in setting up a container, I want that life. I want to bring some of those earthworms back with me, and I know that they're inside that container too. That's why they're underneath. Because there probably is leaves or whatever ended up in there, and it's their food. And that's the thing you've got to remember as well. When you are setting up containers, like here is a bunch of food scraps and stuff in here, and I'm cleaning up the garden. This is going to be another one that's going to be layered like I do. You must water them to keep them alive. Your soil is alive. It's just not dry dirt that's just sitting there. It's a living being. And of course, it's not the soil itself that's alive, but the soil's got so much in it that's alive. So you've got all your little critters. Some people have said to me, oh, they found bugs in their soil. Of course there's bugs in your soil. And if there's no bugs, you're not going to grow anything. I mean, not if you're trying to compost, because that's what's breaking it down. You've got all kinds of microbes and fungus and different things. That's not eating the food. It's not going to eat what you plant, I should say. It's not going to eat the live plants that are growing. It's not touching that. These critters from nature are doing what they're supposed to do. They're taking anything that falls off of trees and lands on the ground. They're feeding underneath. They're not going to be on top. It's dry on top. None of these critters will be on top. They're going to be underneath. That's why if something falls, the next time it falls again, it is then underneath, and whatever's underneath will come up and eat. That's why, remember, if you're setting up containers for the future to grow in and you're not ready yet, make sure you water it. Water it like it is a plant. You don't need to drop a hose in it, fill it to the top, and soak it like a swimming pool. No. Just hit it with a sprayer. Just make sure there's a little dampness in there, because they need dampness like we need water. Water is life. I know somebody that tried to set up a compost bin. I don't want to say who it is, somebody I know well, and he had nothing but problems. He said he collected everything just like I told him. And I said, all right. And I said, you can't grow it? No. He said, and nothing's breaking down. I said, nothing's breaking down. It's been sitting for how long? Like 4 or 5 months now. Nothing's breaking down. And he's in Southern California. And I said, it doesn't make any sense. By nature, it has to. Even if you didn't do that much to it, it has to. He kept it in a sheltered area, so it wasn't getting rained on. And he didn't water it. I said, wait a minute, did you water it? He goes, no, why would I water it? I'm just collecting it. Well, now you've turned it into a petrified matter. I mean, then you're going to end up with just dry leaves and dry stuff, and it's just going to be dry. You have to water it a little bit. Think of it as a plant. Just hit it with a little water, and he didn't know that. And another person who was having the same issue now doesn't have the same issue and is loaded with earthworms that went in there, because earthworms can't live in dry sand, dry dirt, dry anything. They are a wet animal. They need dampness, not waterlogged. Dampness. And that was the thing. That was his only issue, was he forgot to water it. Now, I've had other people tell me the same thing. They didn't water it. It dried out. Oh my gosh, what do I do? It's perfect. It's petrified, but throw it into something where you're going to start collecting again. and just hit it with water. Don't throw it away. It's still matter that's going to break down into beautiful soil. So, I mean, if you wanted to, you could collect your food matter. You could collect your leaves from the garden. You could let them completely dry out and then add them to the compost you're going to make later if you're composting in place. So if you've got buckets like, and I do it, I've got dry leaves. If you've got buckets with dry leaves, add it in, because once it gets water on it, once it gets damp, it will break down. It's going to break down like everything else. It becomes the whole ecosystem in there. So it's okay. You don't ever throw that away. So now back to the garden and get my chores done. So you can see how this is going to end up later, hopefully successful. But if not, something happens, I'll show you. Because, we all have our ups and our downs when it comes to our gardening, because we never know what's going to happen. So let's get my container set up and hopefully have something really fun growing really fast. So what I'm doing here on this one is I want to make sure there's really good holes on the bottom. So I literally took my shovel and I stuck it in, because I'm going to sit this in here and I want the worms to gravitate up and down this pot. I've got 4 now here. I can plant whatever I want. They're independent, but they're still feeding on the container. And in between all these pots, I can still throw kitchen scraps if I want. Look, I know you can't see it, but it is full of earthworms. So this pot is very much alive. Right now, see, has this one got holes? It's got small holes. It's pretty much set up the way I want. Again, on this one, cheap shovel, let's see. Good enough for me. And that's how you do it quick when you're in the garden. But now I'll have these 4. I'm putting the shovel all the way to the bottom. This one's empty, and I want to get these 4 in the back and 4 in the front, all stabilized and ready to go. That one's not full enough. I could grab some more from the red tub. Oh, a baby tomato. Oh, sucker for these things. Okay, for now, you make it, you can live. If you don't make it, oh well. But we know that this is so full of earthworms. Look at that. I mean, that's all earthworms. It's amazing how many earthworms are in there. And I want to make sure that all these pots have enough soil. And since I'm not using this one right now and it's empty, I can throw kitchen scraps in there already. I could throw a couple more leaves. This is how I set up a lot of my stuff. And I do it differently, different times. Depends on my mood. See, this one had something growing in it. The soil is still nice and wet. The roots are there, but it doesn't matter. It's all going to break down and disappear. Now I am ready. Look at this. And even the tub I just emptied is so full of earthworms. Oh, this one had some sort of onions. I can smell onions. Okay, so I've got all kinds of stuff going. I could top this with wood chips. Before I walk away from this, the main thing to do is I have to water it. I don't think I really want this in here, but for now, I'm just going to sit it in there. That's pretty much it. Now, when I want to compost in here, I should say dump kitchen scraps in between. Anywhere, dig a hole, dump, and cover it. So right now, I'm going to decide on what I want to plant in here. I'm going to make sure there's no earthworms on me. Nope. This is good to go, and I can plant. First thing I want to do is water, because I know there are earthworms in here. And whatever you do, you don't want this to dry out. They need water. They don't need it flooded, but as long as it drains, they have fallen into buckets, and I have pulled them out of buckets. I don't know how long they were in the buckets for, but the thing is, you want to make sure that it drains. If anything ever happened to one of your tubs, as long as it pulls up, you know, I mean, they can pull up, they can pull into one of these. So let's say one of your tubs got waterlogged, something happened. It'll actually gravitate into these tubs. They'll go up out of the water. But look at that, this is good. Now I can decide, this I'm leaving here for now. I could still set small pots in here if I want. These pots will act as a mulch until I'm ready to plant in there. So you can set pots on top of your containers, I've talked about this, even before you plant. It actually helps keep your soil alive. But that's it, we're good to go. Move this. Now if I wanted to, I could plant in here. You know, I'm going to plant one, just because. Here is a new system, a new way to plant with 1 cup. This is a zucchini coming up, and you only need 1 cup. I'll show you in details on another video. Maybe next time I'll put up a 2-minute Tuesday, because it only really deserves 2 minutes. But on this, I made slits. So I'm not transplanting this. This is not being pulled out of the cup. I will know where my zucchini is. It is going in here. Doesn't need to be buried that much. Now, because of the way I did it, this particular zucchini set its roots out. And that's perfectly fine. Let me see, do I have some better soil maybe I want to use? This is going to be my first zucchini I'm planting outside in this container. As far as the bottom, I can compost this. This is paper, or throw it away. That's the part I cut off. I'll explain that in another video. But that's all I need to do. I don't need to do anything else. This zucchini will be now secure in its own little cup. I will know where to water it. And because it's so small, I'm going to cover it with something, only because I don't want a bird to come along and take a nip out of it. I'll probably have to get something else. That might work for now. But that's easy. That's it. So now I'm going to have this whole ecosystem going. I'm going to still throw kitchen scraps and leaves from the garden and get a new shovel. In between all the pots, I could do this indefinitely. I could do it whenever I want. I could do it all summer. I could do it all fall. If we have a mild winter and my tomatoes in here, let's see, are growing, I could still be throwing kitchen scraps and leaves all between the pots. So with that, I took you with me today. I wasn't planning on it. I came out here, started working in my new leggings. I just started working on all this, and I thought, you know, maybe somebody wants to see how I set up some of my different containers. So I thought I'm going to grab my cameras and I'm going to come out here and you can watch me. Now it's just a matter of putting some stuff in here. Maybe I'll move some of the tomatoes in there, but I've got some other seedlings in the house that I started. And now we are good to go. So with that, have a great day and don't forget to eat what you grow. Bye-bye, everybody.